At exactly 10 a.m. this morning, the nature of this conflict changed. It is no longer a bombing campaign. It is no longer a ceasefire. It is no longer a negotiation. It is a naval blockade, the most aggressive unilateral maritime action by the United States since the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962. The U.S. on Monday said it began blocking ships from entering or exiting Iranian ports in the Strait of Hormuz. CENTCOM warned the blockade applies to all vessel traffic, regardless of flag. Any vessel entering or departing the blockaded area without authorization is subject to interception, diversion, and capture. Trump posted that if any Iranian vessels approach, they will be immediately eliminated using the same system of kill that we are using against the drug boats at sea, quick and brutal.
U.S. naval blockade in full effect for an Iranian ports situation that is going to crush their economy. Strait of Hormuz is in our control now. U.S. Central Command just warned the blockade applies to all vessel traffic, regardless of the flag of the country they're from. Any vessel entering or departing the blockaded area without authorization is subject to interception, diversion, and capture. That's a quote. And the president has said turning up the heat is the answer to the radical Islamic regime after it rejected the U.S. peace proposal over the weekend. Some key sticking points now include Iran's nuclear program. Remember, we expect them to turn over the uranium. They cannot have a weapon. And the full opening of Hormuz for oil ships to flow freely to supply countries around the globe. I'm Harris Faulkner. You are in the Faulkner Focus. We're tracking the U.S. blockade and control over the Strait of Hormuz. What you're looking at right now is a live look of ship movement on a map that we're using to track it. Iran says it will respond to the U.S. blockade by attacking ports of all of its neighbors. So we're back to them hitting the people who at least were neutral, if not their friends. Here's President Trump.
Their military is destroyed. Their whole Navy is underwater. You know that. 158 ships are gone. Their Navy's gone. Most of their mine droppers are gone. I think Iran is in very bad shape. I think they're very desperate.
Next, Senate Intelligence Chairman Tom Cotton here.
I think the president has bent over backwards now, going back 9 years, trying to allow Iran to take very simple, very easy steps of turning over their nuclear materials, shutting down their nuclear infrastructure, stopping their support for terrorism. These are not onerous demands. These are something we expect from any civilized nation.
Right.
And the president's going to continue to try to find a way to meet those demands, but he's going to keep the military and economic pressure on Iran until they do.
And now we hear from General Jack Keane.
First of all, I think the timing is exquisite here in terms of what's actually taken place. The Iranians kind of surprised me a little bit. I think they actually miscalculated somewhat, because I think they overplayed their hand in the sense of what the Strait of Hormuz and taking control of it meant. We're in the hour of execution. Ships are coming on a channel that CENTCOM is demanding them to talk to on, and they will control their transit on that channel and tell them where to go and what to do.
We are in the hour of execution from the general, and you heard what that means for Iran. We're in control of that strait right now. Now, we do have to watch out for what the president just talked about. He mentioned, you heard him, he said that Iran is laying mines. And so if their intention is to try to blow up these ships out there, we're going to be out there mine sweeping as well. We'll get into more of that. Congressman Mike Lawler, member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, will be in focus coming up. I want to first go to Fox team coverage on the showdown over the strait. Former Army Special Ops Intelligence Analyst Brett Velikovich is also on deck. And senior national correspondent Rich Edson is at the White House. Rich, we start with you.
Good morning, Harris. Well, this conflict is now in its next phase. The United States announcing a blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, an attempt to shut off Iranian trade. The president just posted, quote, warning. If any of these ships come anywhere close to our blockade, they will be immediately eliminated using the same system of kill that we are using against the drug dealers on boats at sea. It is quick and brutal. The president says he is indifferent to whether Iran wants to continue to talk.
I don't care if they come back or not. If they don't come back, I'm fine. Their military is gone. Their missiles are largely depleted. The manufacturing capability for missiles and drones is largely defeated. We've been very nice. We haven't ripped down too many bridges. We did one only because they broke their word.
The president is facing opposition on his Iran operation from some conservatives, but overwhelmingly from Democrats, who are now criticizing the newly initiated blockade.
I don't understand how blockading the strait is going to somehow push the Iranians into opening it. I don't get the connection there. Asian countries right now, they're shutting down their economies one day a week.
And the president has said the U.S. military will work with allies to block traffic in the strait. The U.K. says it is not supporting that operation. French President Emmanuel Macron says, quote, in the coming days, together with the United Kingdom, we will organize a conference with those countries prepared to contribute alongside us to a peaceful multinational mission aimed at restoring freedom of navigation in the strait. Macron called it a strictly defensive mission. Harris?
Rich, thank you very much. We're getting some more new information in, and I want to go right to my first guest, Brett Velikovich, former Army Special Ops intelligence analyst and Fox News contributor. Great to see you today. I just want to ask you about this subject to interception, diversion, and capture. I mean, we are controlling now, our U.S. military is controlling the Strait of Hormuz. That's what Iran said it would do. So we just flipped the switch. What are your military thoughts about that operation?
Well, exactly. And that new operation is really meant to send a global message that America is the one who guarantees freedom of navigation, not Iran, not militias, not anyone else. And when that principle is challenged, we enforce it. It's no longer just talk. And when the president ordered this, blockade, it isn't a blockade in the old school sense with battleships lined up. It's a modern, layered maritime control operation led by the U.S. Navy under U.S. Central Command. You're talking destroyers, cruisers, carrier strike groups, submarines, surveillance aircraft, drones, all working together to dominate that waterway. And then when you add in minesweepers clearing Iranian mines, you've got total control of the environment, surface, subsurface, and air. And execution-wise, the mission is simple but powerful. Control who moves, how they move, and whether they move at all. The Navy's going to identify and track, and if necessary, interdict vessels attempting to pay Iran or violate sanctions. That doesn't mean firing first. It means overwhelming presence backed by the ability to act instantly. And when you look at the rules of engagement, this is going to be very disciplined, not reckless. U.S. forces will operate under very clear escalation protocols. They're going to warn, they're going to redirect, they're only going to escalate if there is a real threat or non-compliance. But let's be clear, if Iranian fast boats or proxies try to challenge the U.S. forces, they're going to be dealt with quickly and decisively.
All right. And then for Iran's part of this, they say they're going to start shooting at their neighbors' ports. That's problematic because you do have other ships out there. And even if those ships don't anticipate passing through the Strait of Hormuz, or maybe they will make it through, depending on what our military deems as proper authorization to let them go, what does that look like if it looks like war re-engages with Iran firing at its neighbors again?
I think, unfortunately, that was inevitable because Iran's been lying for so long. And look, strategically, Tehran has mistaken our strength in that region for weakness. This ceasefire we're in right now, it didn't come out of nowhere. It was forced into existence by American strength. That's the only language that the brutal regime understands. The president and the administration, they set a clear deadline the other day, backed it with real military action, and then Iran blinked. That's how deterrence is supposed to work. Not endless negotiations, not vague warnings. Clear terms backed by credible force. That's American leadership. And when the president created this ceasefire deadline the other night, look how Iran responded. They used human shields. They called civilians into the streets to form human shields around infrastructure. That's not strength. That tells me it's desperation. Strong governments are supposed to protect their people. Weak regimes hide behind them. So they're already out of real defenses.
So, Brett, we have been able to confirm, at least Iran says, that they've done some mine laying. We have to go out there and sweep that either way. Either they're bluffing or they're not. We have to make sure that whatever is in the Strait of Hormuz is safe. Quickly on that, and I want to get to the next.
Well, absolutely. I think that's one of the mysteries, is how long it's going to take to clear those mines. The fact is, this ceasefire is not the end game. It's a leverage point. The danger now is complacency. The worst thing we can do is now that we've gained this leverage and removed a lot of these mines, and we continue to work on that blockade, we can't pretend that the job is done. Now is not the time to let up. So I hope we keep going.
Yeah, well, we haven't moved our military forces anywhere. The Wall Street, they're still parked out there. The Wall Street Journal editorial board's new piece is titled "Trump Blockades the Blockaders in Iran." And here's part of that. The regime will also have to consider the possibility of U.S. airstrikes to destroy its oil export infrastructure at Karg Island. This was unlikely while U.S. policy was to keep Iran's oil flowing. Now it seems possible, especially if Trump finds the blockade too slow moving as a policy tool. Over weeks and months of a blockade, that would strangle the regime's revenue, but the president may want results at the negotiating table sooner than that. Your thoughts on it?
We need to project strength. This may be the best opportunity in a long time we'll get to fundamentally change the trajectory of this regime. Their economy's strained, their military's degraded, their leadership's under pressure, and their strategy exposed. And so if we stay the course and continue to maximize pressure, we force a reckoning. And if I was advising the president, I'd tell him to be ready to keep going until they have no options left. Iran played this negotiation game for too long. They played it arguably better than us with prior administrations who regularly caved to their demands, but that can't happen anymore. The cost of us backing down is generational. It's bigger than all of us. The next few days and moments are going to define whether America still has the will to finish what it started. Iran's betting we're going to hesitate, that we're going to fracture internally. And history won't remember the moment you almost won. It's going to remember whether you finished a job and whether future generations and the world is safer for it. So we have to break them now, once and for all.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk about those 47 to 50 years that we basically capitulated with, pallets of cash from one particular president and others trying to do deals that just were not solvent. Great to see you. Thank you very much for starting us off now on all that fresh news about the Strait of Hormuz. It is open. It's been open for about an hour and 11 minutes at this point. We'll continue to watch. Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.
Harris Faulkner opened her show with 5 words that are, for once, not hyperbole. The showdown is here. She's right. And the showdown is far bigger than this segment, or any segment today, has fully conveyed. Before we can understand the blockade, we need to understand why it exists. The Islamabad talks, 21 hours of the first direct U.S.-Iran negotiations since 1979, failed. The two sides could not agree on reopening the Strait of Hormuz or dismantling Iran's nuclear enrichment facilities. According to a source briefed on the talks, some of the disagreements had to do with Iran's demand to control the strait and its refusal to give up its enriched uranium stockpile. An official said Vance was pragmatic but not naive. He was hopeful of making a deal, but over the 21 hours, he also probed Iran's vulnerabilities, and now Trump will test them. So the talks weren't just a failure, they were intelligence gathering. Vance spent 21 hours learning what Iran would and wouldn't concede, and now Trump is using that information to apply the next layer of pressure. Whether that's brilliant strategy or escalation toward catastrophe depends entirely on what Iran does next, and Iran has already told us. The Fox segment noted, almost in passing, that Iran has threatened to respond to the blockade by attacking the ports of its neighbors: Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar. This is not a hypothetical. Iran has been doing this for 45 days. The UAE alone has absorbed 438 ballistic missiles, 19 cruise missiles, and 2012 drones since the war began, killing 12 people and injuring 190. Kuwait's desalination plants have been hit. Saudi pipelines have been struck. Qatar's LNG facilities were attacked. If Iran responds to the blockade by intensifying attacks on Gulf state infrastructure, the ceasefire, already barely functional, is finished, and the countries that Trump needs to help police the strait become the ones most desperate for the fighting to stop. General Keane said on air that Iran overplayed their hand. Maybe. But a regime with nothing left to lose and the ability to fire missiles at oil refineries across the Gulf isn't a regime that's been cornered. It's a regime that's been made more dangerous, not less. The segment touched on mine clearing, but didn't dwell on it. It should have. This is the operational reality that determines whether the blockade works or becomes a trap. Iran still has the ability to fight back with mines. An unknown number of small boats carrying missiles, surface drones, aerial drones, land-based cruise missiles, and shoulder-fired anti-aircraft missiles that could target helicopters and fighter jets protecting ships in the water. A retired U.S. Navy admiral told CNN the Pentagon would need 2 aircraft carrier strike groups and about a dozen surface ships outside the Gulf to patrol the strait, plus at least 6 destroyers inside the Gulf, along with help from UAE and Saudi navies. According to one report, Iran lost track of mines it planted in the Strait of Hormuz and is therefore unable to fully open the strait, even if it wanted to. Read that again. Iran may not be able to open the strait even if it agrees to, because it doesn't know where its own mines are. The blockade may be solving a political problem, who controls the strait, while creating a military one. The strait is physically dangerous regardless of who controls it. Mine clearing in a waterway this large, with this many types of ordnance under potential threat from Iranian fast boats and drones, is not a days-long operation. It is a weeks to months operation. Analysts called the blockade high risk because of Iran's options to strike back. The UN's Food and Agriculture Organization warned that a global food crisis could develop if normal traffic doesn't resume through the strait soon. The FAO's chief economist said the clock is ticking to avoid a situation rivaling the COVID-19 pandemic's food disruption. CNN, the last pre-war oil tankers are about to deliver their final cargoes. Once those 2 ships arrive, the world will have exhausted its supply of pre-war crude and fuel. Governments, companies, and consumers have drawn down 250 million barrels of crude in storage since the war broke out. Gas prices had started to fall after the ceasefire. Economists warned they will now rebound because of the blockade, along with diesel and jet fuel prices. Bond yields will rise, threatening to increase mortgage rates and the cost of borrowing for millions of Americans. Iran's parliamentary speaker Ghalibaf posted a picture of gas prices near Washington with the caption, "Enjoy the current pump figures." With what is being called a blockade, you will soon miss $4 to $5 gasoline. The Fox segment spent 0 seconds on food security, 0 seconds on the exhaustion of pre-war oil reserves, 0 seconds on the cascading economic effects of a blockade that restricts global oil supply even further. It spent significant time on the phrase "crush their economy" without asking whose economy gets crushed in the process. Faulkner ran the segment with genuine urgency and asked the right foundational questions. Her observation that this is the least ceasefire-like ceasefire, which she first made days ago, has proven prophetic. She correctly identified the mine threat, the risk of Iranian retaliation against Gulf ports, and the significance of the U.S. flipping Iran's own playbook. Her live ship tracking map was, once again, the most useful visual journalism on any network covering this war. Showing viewers in real time where ships are and aren't moving communicates the scale of the crisis better than any pundit's commentary. Brett Velikovich, the former Army Special Ops intelligence analyst, delivered a technically competent briefing on the blockade's mechanics. Then he said something that deserves to be heard clearly. The next few days and moments will define whether America still has the will to finish what it started. Iran is betting will hesitate and fracture internally. History won't remember the moment you almost won. It will remember whether you finished the job. This is the language of total commitment. It leaves no room for a negotiated settlement that falls short of complete Iranian capitulation. It frames anything less than absolute victory as historical failure. And it mirrors the rhetoric that preceded some of the costliest strategic miscalculations in American military history. Finish the job is what they said about Vietnam in 1968, about Iraq in 2003, about Afghanistan in 2009. The job never finished. The wars just found new phases, new costs, new ways to not end. Nobody on the panel asked, what does finishing the job look like? Is it Iran surrendering its uranium, opening the strait unconditionally, regime collapse, all three? And if Iran won't do any of those things, if it instead absorbs the blockade, fires missiles at Saudi ports, and waits for the global economy to scream loud enough that Washington backs down. Then what? CNN's analysis stated the core paradox clearly. Iran's continued control over the strait gives it significant leverage in the war. Its military and leadership have been devastated, but it retains economic power over the United States and the world. That's why, so far at least, Iran isn't wavering. 45 days of the most intense bombing campaign since Iraq 2003. The supreme leader killed, the Navy sunk, the Air Force destroyed, over 1,000 IRGC commanders eliminated. And Iran still controls the one thing that matters most to the global economy. The blockade is Trump's answer. It's bold, it's unprecedented, and it carries risks that make everything that came before look manageable by comparison. If it works, if Iran buckles, opens the strait, surrenders nuclear material, and a deal emerges, this will be studied as one of the most audacious strategic gambits in modern history. If it doesn't, if Iran retaliates against Gulf ports, if China pushes back, if oil hits $150, if the food crisis materializes, if a U.S. warship hits a mine, if this spirals into a confrontation with a nuclear-armed power, then the analysts who said finish the job will have helped write a chapter of history that no one will want to read. Day 45. The blockade is on. The mines are in the water. The last pre-war oil is being delivered. The FAO is warning about food. China is watching. Iran is threatening. And the United States Navy is now the gatekeeper of 1/5 of the world's energy supply. The showdown is here. Faulkner was right about that. What she didn't say, what no one on television seems willing to say, is that showdowns have two possible endings, and only one of them is the one we're planning for.